my name is Luna and welcome to Crit Role Conspiracies, the show where we take a deep dive into Critical Role. Bells Hells tear out of Bassaras on their crawlers with Birdie and Hondir making their way to the Callaway layaway. But on the way there, they are ambushed by members of the Fists of the Ruiner. The Ruiner is one of the betrayer gods, otherwise known as Grumsh, who was released during the Calamity. In fact, he made a little tiny appearance during EXU Calamity. The Ruiner is a chaotic evil god who encourages his followers to conquer and destroy and to revel in violence. And he's actually the one who created this desert, because here there used to be a lush, beautiful jungle, but now it is mostly a desert thanks to his destruction. Now, Matt did mention in this episode that he tried to destroy the entire continent, but was thwarted. I scoured the Crit Role wiki. All praise is given to the Crit Role wiki. And I couldn't find anything about this noble sacrifice. I was wondering if maybe it was referring to the events of EXU Calamity, because that ended in a noble sacrifice. But also the Calamity was 150 to 200 years long, so there was like lots of things that happened in that time. I don't know, let me know your thoughts. Now, the symbol of the Ruiner is a eye with blood streaking out underneath it, and this is reflective of an event in the Calamity where Grumsh's eye was destroyed by Corellon, one of the prime deities. So these Fists of the Ruiner have this sort of like giant war machine with rifles on it. It's a really fun and cool battle. I think my favorite moment was when Imogen cast that lightning spell and it set off all of the gunpowder, setting off so much damage in one round. My least favorite part was Marisha describing how Laudna entered her form of dread.
No! God, please, no!
In this fight, things actually go pretty sideways. Hondir is downed, Imogen is downed twice, FCG is also downed twice, Birdie gets downed, but eventually the party do manage to get the upper hand and they kill the leader of the group, but they send the rest of them scattering. Before the fight, they did mention a couple of times like, hey, we work for the Paragon's call, like surely you don't want to fight with us, which didn't really work in diffusing things, but yes, I'm wondering if, this particular group of marauders is going to come back to bite them in the butt later, since they know who they work for. Well, pretending to work for. They arrive at the Callaway layaway, which is in a old sort of abandoned brigand lair that they have transformed and turned into what seems to be like a nice, cozy home. Most notably, they have managed to grow a lot of luscious plant life. Even though it is underground, they have this whole sort of place just filled with plants because of the influence of purple hanging stones from the roof, most presumably Null rock. It's never said out loud, but Matt points out that these rocks are very familiar, especially to Imogen and Laudna. It's slightly concerning that Fern's parents have been like working and living in such close proximity to this substance, although Ira did tell them to stay away from it and not to touch it because it does have some kind of influence. It's also really interesting that we've sort of heard about the Null rock talked about in terms of corrupting things and having a corrupting influence, but here it has a life-giving property. It is helping these plants to grow. I just want to know more about this substance. I just want like the stat block for it. Matt Mercer, tweet it out for us. The people need to know. They head into a big workshop, which is where the machine that Birdie, Ollie, and Ira have been working on, and we get a lovely reunion with Fern's father.
Oh my god.
Hi.
Fern! And runs up and like just brings you in this big bear hug. And you can see like he's about a good foot shorter than Fern. This man of fine fey elven features, a bit sallow in the face, but kind of a rugged handsomeness to him. His eyes have almost a golden sheen to their coloration when it pokes through the bit of like shaggy hair that's in the middle of his face. But as he kind of just holds you, and you could manhandle him if you really want to, although not with your strength maybe.
I pick him up. Just the biggest hug.
Oh, love, it's been so long.
I'm so much taller than you.
Yeah, it's been some time you've grown up. That's,
I haven't. I've grown up quite a bit. It's been a very long time since you guys have been gone.
You're not wrong. Why, you grew up faster than we expected.
Well, I think maybe it's been a little longer than you expected. So it seems.
Okay, well, either way, I'm glad to see you looking so strong and coming into your own for a young adult, huh?
I don't know if I would even be considered a young adult anymore, even though I feel like one. I'm 112 now.
Oh, that's cute.
So the purpose of this machine, which is kind of like a giant telescope, is to observe Ruidus because it's very good at evading observation. And working on this telescope is none other than the Nightmare King himself. I love how everybody is so grossed out by the description of this guy, except for Laudna, who's like cheekily flirting in the background. Ira really doesn't seem that fazed to see them, and in fact kind of apologizes for the circumstances of their last meeting, just saying that he was working for Treshy doing what he was told. They still did not ask him what he was doing for Treshy, how Treshy is connected to the Paragon's Call and to Odahan and to the people who are trying to kill like, it's just driving me bonkers. Just please ask some questions. I have so many questions. Just put Ira down, sit him down, I'll send out a list. Hopefully they ask him some more about that next episode, because obviously there was a lot going on with the reunion and the moon stuff that we'll talk about in a bit, but I just feel like this is really important and they haven't really talked about it yet. Ollie and Ira take the green stone that Fern was given by her grandmother Mori to aid in this endeavor, and they place it within the machine. So if you recall, this green stone allows the user to look through it and to essentially see and read the weave. The weave is described in Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide as being an essential element of the universe, and that creatures with the necessary talent and skill can manipulate the weave to perform magic by casting spells. It is the raw material from which the tapestry of magic is woven. With the addition of this green stone, the telescope that they've built, which is called the Veil Scatterscope, should be able to pierce any protective magic and see through to whatever is beyond. They do use it to look at Ruidus, we're gonna get to that, but first we sort of learn a little bit more about Ollie. We learn that he has something called the squint. It's me in the morning before I put my glasses on. Presumably a play on words for the sight, which is a term that is often used for sort of divination powers. He has often gotten small signs of trouble, he's been able to change things slightly, and he's been using that gift since he was a young child. Now he's been getting these horrible visions of the red moon or red storm tearing through the Feywild and seeing a figure who he presumed was Birdie, but now that he sees Fern and knowing that she's like much older because of the weird timey-wimey stuff, thinks that maybe it could be her instead. His story about getting laughed out of or shunned by the courts matches Birdie's, and the fact that they stole the crown and left Fern with Mori, who he refers to as the Fate Stitcher. The party discussed the time discrepancy a little bit, and Ira interjects.
Well, you left her with Morrigan. She's a collector of things. And if she knew she had limited time, she may have stretched it for all it's worth. Wouldn't be the first time.
Wouldn't be the first time? What does that mean?
So, Mori is a collector of things. She does favors for people. She's 15 feet tall. She can change the environment around her. She is definitely a hag, 100%. Yes, love it when I get something correct for once. Fern does not really seem too bothered by the thought of Mori stretching out time so that she can spend more time with her. She loves her grandmother. She thinks that she's wonderful. And, you know, it's kind of giving me very much like the beginning of Tangled vibes. Okay, so that's 5 points of damage, and then... Luna, it's your turn. Luna? Hello? Luna? Make your dice dreams a reality with a new set of dice from Only Crits. With so many styles and colors to choose from, there is something to match the aesthetic of your character to give you that little extra something next time you're playing. But not only do Only Crits sell beautiful dice and cases and accessories, they also sell 5th edition adventures so that you can expand your Dungeons & Dragons game. Use the code LUNA at checkout to get 12% off your order, plus every single order comes with a free adventure. Luna? Oh, sorry. I guess I cast a spell? Hold on. Fern, well, and also Ashley, actually has a very insightful moment where she asks if potentially, if you have to give something to Mori for her to perform a favor, she wonders if she was the thing that her parents gave in order for Mori to make this stone. That they kind of traded her, even if it was unknowingly, to a hag to get this item that they needed, which is, it's kind of messed up. But Fern sort of just takes all of this in her stride. Imogen shares with Ollie her visions and her dreams and sort of says she thinks that she might be on Ruidus when she has these dreams. But reflecting now on what Ollie has said, I wonder if instead of being on Ruidus, she is actually at her home and she's seeing this vision of the storm tearing through her home, because in her dreams, she always starts out in the field, her house is behind her, and she runs towards her home. So in a similar way that Ollie is having visions of the moon or the moon's power, like tearing through the Feywild, perhaps she is seeing the moon tearing through Exandria, through the material plane. Imogen looks through the enhanced scatter scope and sees Ruidus, but this time she can see a lattice around it, kind of like a cage. As I've talked about previously, we know from Call of the Netherdeep that the gods found an alien influence that was corrupting things, and so they locked it away. Presumably, this lattice work is that lock, that cage. Imogen straight up thinks that it's an imprisoned god. Like, she immediately jumps to that conclusion. And she looks again to see if there are any breaks or cracks in the cage, which might explain this kind of influence leaking out. But of course, she rolls a natural 1 on her perception check. Why? The dice gods are cruel. But luckily, Orem has a look and he gets a natural 20. He sees a glinting in the storm, and so he hands back over the telescope to Imogen, who looks through.
Now, you've seen a few storms in your time. Red clouds swirling angrily, aggressively, hungrily in your dreams, moving and consuming. Behind them, nothing but dust and shadow. As this device pushes past the layer of lattice, cage-like energy, pushing beyond the boundaries of your vision, the storm clearer than it's ever been. You see it part for but a moment. And there's a city. And that's where we're in tonight's episode.
Oh, you can't do that! You can't do that! What do you mean?
God, I have no idea what my neighbors must think of me. No thoughts, head empty, just thinking about the city on the moon. Okay, so I made a whole video where I said, Bell's Hells are going to the moon, because I believe wholeheartedly that they will get a Spelljammer, a ship that can fly through space and go to the moon. This just proves it. We are going to this city. I cannot wait. I don't know if it's gonna be the like big final thing that they're gonna do, but surely they're gonna go to this city. Like, surely. This is very exciting. I need to know, who's living on the moon? What are they doing there? How did they get there? Just such an absolutely incredible moment. And I just love seeing how far we've come from that very first moment where Sam went, wait, what? There's 2 moons? And then Matt was like, yeah, we've talked about the fact that Exandria has 2 moons. To when Bo and Caleb went and met with the moon researcher and they were just so dismissive of his research and just being like, wow, this guy's really boring. To this point where there is a literal city on the moon and the party are so invested in finding out what's there. I just think it's a really cool evolution that we've seen across all 3 campaigns. Yeah, it's gonna be great. I can't wait. This is so exciting. Okay, collecting myself. Let's talk about some of your theories from last week's video. Quite a lot of you talked about how the documents that refer to 2 gods that are no longer part of the pantheon, how one of them could be the god that the Raven Queen destroyed in order to ascend to that domain. That if these documents are dated so far back enough that perhaps it contains the original name of that god, which due to like the Raven Queen's ritual and magic and everything has been completely forgotten and completely struck from history. Some of you believe it could also be referring to the Lux, which is a deity or a figure of some kind worshipped by the Kryn dynasty. The Explorer's Guide to Wildmount has this to say about the Luxon. According to the teachings of the Kryn and the Umavi who scribed their faith, it is believed that long before the gods of Exandria came to shape this world, there was a time when a single light came from the dark nothingness. Lonely, they wandered until they found a cold, dark rock. A world. The light grew fond of this rock, seeing it as lonely as they were, and embraced it. They sparked a fire within, cracking the surface and giving fiery life to the cold world. Or potentially these documents are referring to whatever alien entity or god has been imprisoned in Ruidus. Their name could have also been forgotten and struck from the record, and all these things are sort of coming to light now as the apogee solstice approaches. Something else I want to talk about very briefly, this is a theory that has been simmering probably since the beginning of the campaign. I've seen it quite a lot in the comments of my videos, which is that attack on the heir Ashari was not actually attacking Keyleth, that she was not the target, but in fact it was Will, Orem's husband. We know that Will was killed in that attack, so maybe he was the target. Of course, Orem has the beautiful moon tattoo, which Liam has stated in Four-Sided Dive that he just made because he thought it was like a nice thing. You know, it was just sort of like a detail that he added to the character, but, you know, it wouldn't surprise me if Matt had taken that detail and turned it into something fully fledged. Because if Keyleth was the target of the attack, it strikes me as a little odd that they didn't try again, that it's been 6 or 7 years and there haven't been any more attacks, at least that we know of. Potentially something could have happened while Orem is away, since we're seeing everything through Orem's perspective. But yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because quite a few of you are talking about it in the comments and I'm interested to see where it leads. And lastly, a few of you brought up the fact that the mirror assassins that you talked about in the last episode maybe could explain the presence of Dark Fern in EXU.
She sent the letters. She gave the gifts.
This Dark Fern could have been one of those mirror assassins sent after her. Which begs the question, when did a mirror get pointed at her? When did they find her? How long have they been tracking her? We know that there were multiple assassins on this case, essentially, trying to track down the Callaways, so it might not have been you themselves, it could have been another assassin who sent this spooky Dark Fern to attack them. I still think the Grey Assassins might be related to these mirrors, but I know some of you think they might be separate things. I've seen that in the comments as well, so I guess all we can do is wait and continue theorizing. So on that note, please put all of your theories in the comments below because I love to read them, and especially give me your theories about this city. What is it? Who lives there? I need to know. I'd like to say a special thank you to my patrons and YouTube members. If you would like to support the channel and get access to my podcast Flump Friends, which I just released the 10th episode of, you can get that for just $5 a month. You can listen to the entire back catalog and the episodes come out every 2 weeks. So you can do that right here on YouTube or at Patreon. And a special thank you to Yasha and Admiral. Don't forget to head to Only Crits and use the code LUNAR to get 12% off your beautiful new dice. And until next time, bye!
Who is the curious one of your lot as he pockets the lens? Come with me.
Okay.
And as he grabs your hand, the fingers like wrap around your hand and clutch across his hand.
I've got very tiny, dainty fingers too. So
Yeah,
it just,
it's
Yeah.
He kind of
Yeah.
pulls,
Oops.
and in this one like a solid move, and he pulls you back. His long bent lids, kind of him having to like crouch down to get to where you're standing, and pulls you to the front of this odd device. It looks.
She's in it.
Oh no, that might have been the best.
The choice of mug makes it even better.
7 years.
I just felt some like scratching and I was like,